Euthanize News.
Hello there and welcome. It's nice to have you on the program Youth Weekly on Youth TV Africa. It's one program that gives you highlights of key issues making headlines during the week, uniquely in the language and perspective of young people. My name is Chinedu Echianu.
And I am Hyelda Apollos. You're welcome to the program. Here are some of the stories in the headline this week. Jonathan orders the detention of 4 leadership editors.
Federal government yet to approve NECO UTM scrapping, Minister of Education. Trade Union Congress, Civil Society Group endorse mass protest over pension fund. Confidence in judiciary nosediving, Chief Justice of Nigeria. Bayelsa Police Killings, police recover 11 bodies. And to southwest Nigeria, it's harvest of refuse in Lagos suburbs. 67 directors face sacking in INEC shakeup. Still in southwest Nigeria, Ekiti deputy governor dies of cancer. On the foreign scene, former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher dies at 87. And to sports, NFF cuts Eagles bonus, coaches' salaries. These were some of the key issues that made headlines during the week. Stay with us as we engage in insightful discussion on some of these interesting headlines in the language and perspective of young people.
Youth Weekly, Euthanize News.
Youths have a voice.
We have a story to tell. We are part of the solution.
We bring you youth perspective on issues.
Youth Weekly, Euthanize News.
You're welcome back to the program. If you're just joining us, this is Youth Weekly on Youth TV Africa. Now, Sandra, the state of insecurity in our country is actually getting my attention. The report of Bayelsa Police Killings is actually mind-blowing. It's very ugly. 11 bodies were recovered from water, badly mutilated, and it brings to question the claim of the movement for the emancipation of the Niger Delta, because they've come out to lay claims and take responsibility for that dastardly act. Although the police is somewhat declining the claim of men, but if you remember vividly, the late Yaradua administration actually brought the issue of amnesty to the foreground because of the agitations of the people, the militants in the Niger Delta, and it brings to question the value of the amnesty program. It seems the amnesty program, in my opinion, has been overflowed and abused. What's your take on the issue?
My take on the issue, I would want to start with a question.
Yes.
Does amnesty just involve pardoning people for their sin, or does it involve integrating them and making them lay down their arms? Because if you look at the amnesty program, it doesn't just involve making people, stop the killings. It also involves rehabilitating them and integrating them into a civil society, you understand? And ensuring that they lay down their arms, which you have to collect from them.
Okay.
Now, if this has been effectively implemented, I don't think we should have a replay of this in the Niger Delta.
Another issue that is not being addressed is the source of the agitations in the first place.
Yes.
The underdevelopment of the Niger Delta, where we get our oil reserves from, is actually what actually brought this issue to the foreground. But if you go back and check the Niger Delta, there is still a lot to be done in terms of actually stepping up development in these areas. Now, if that remains, what will happen is you'll find that the younger generation will come up and discover the same problem, and there's a tendency they could actually walk into the same shoes the militants were and begin to create the same agitations that brought about the issue of the amnesty in the first place. So amnesty is actually a child of circumstances, and in this instance, with the way it has been going in the case of Boko Haram and now MEND coming up, it's beginning to become actually an error.
I hope we don't get to a point where any group that just decides to kill and destroy property would come out later and say they want, amnesty for themselves. My problem with this particular case is, I think people are beginning to feel they are above the law, because Henry Oka was lawfully tried and indicted. You understand?
Yes.
So I don't know why people should feel he shouldn't pay up for what he did. Now, if you feel the government doesn't have the right to send him to prison,
yes,
that means you feel you are above the law. And if you are above the law, how do you want law and orderliness to prevail in the society? Because I don't see reasons why you would kill security operatives to prove a point. Now it brings us to the issue, how equipped is our security men?
Yes.
Because every now and then in the far north you hear Boko Haram kill security operatives.
Yes.
Now killing security men has become a means to prove that you are ready for the government, or it means to get back to the government. I feel it doesn't tell well of Nigerian security, security operatives.
That's a very interesting perspective you just brought to this discussion. It brings the question, how equipped really is our security outfits? If 12, or more security men can be brought down by a militant group, how well are they equipped to also protect civilians, which they're supposed to do? But if the law is being taken into hands, doesn't that bring to question the effectiveness of our judicial system?
Seriously, I was going to talk about that particular headline. It brings us to the statement by the Chief Justice of Nigeria saying the public is actually losing confidence in the judicial system. And I really want to agree with her.
Okay.
Because if you look at several rulings of the courts from last year to this year, you discover there are a series of reactions to several rulings. There is no problem with disagreeing with what the court says, because you shouldn't have to agree with everything they say.
Of course,
but
and there are proper ways of channeling your displeasure or your disagreement.
Yes, and without arguing, we know the judicial system is the very, very strong arm of the government, which is used to check and balance the legislature and the executive. Now, if the public is losing confidence in the judicial system, it poses a serious problem to our democratic system. Of course,
there is a tendency for people to just take the law into their hands, since they cannot get justice in the justice system.
It makes people.
It means they should go and get justice for themselves.
Seriously.
I dread the day we'll go back to jungle justice. Like it used to be in the Lagos metropolis, where a thief, you just mention thief, and the next thing you see is tires and fuel, and and the whole place is on fire. I hope it doesn't get down to that, but like the Chief Justice of Nigeria rightly said, there needs to be actually a restructuring. Our judicial system needs to step up their game in issuing justice to the people.
And I was really happy with what she said, because she was like, any judicial officer whose ruling is actually ambiguous, that doesn't really state clearly what should be done, they wouldn't hold back to discipline such people. So I'm really happy with her, because I feel this is one person that's really standing out and is trying to say that the judicial system would work rightly. And we really look forward to in Nigeria where we have transparency in our judicial, because I could easily go to court here.
All right, that is very good. So have your say on the issue. What do you think? Is amnesty being overflowed? Does it still hold the value we anticipated? And is it serving the function that it's supposed to in actually uniting our system and the country at large? What's your say on the issue? Let us know what you think on www.facebook.com/UTVAfrica. We'll be back shortly to engage a guest in the house on some of the issues in the headlines, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
Youth Weekly, Euthanize in News.
Youths have a voice.
We have a story to tell. We are part of the solution.
We bring you youth perspective on issues.
Youth Weekly, Euthanize in News.
Hello and welcome back to the second phase of our discussion segment on Youth Weekly. As usual, we have our guest in the studio with us. His name is Chinedu Echianu. He's a reporter and an editor with Vision FM 92.1. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
A couple of days ago, Leadership newspaper reported that 4 of its journalists were arrested on the orders of the presidency. The question here is, what is the implication of this act on the part of the presidency on our nation's democratic system?
First, when you try to suppress the media, it becomes a very big problem. Because if we are in a democracy, there should be freedom of expression, one,
Yes.
and freedom of information in the first place.
Yeah.
So when you try to suppress the media, that's it's like you are breaching the very essence of democracy and free speech. So in this situation, is a case of trying to suppress information going out to the people, and that's a very big problem.
Okay. Now, the Freedom of Information Act has been around for some time now. And in your opinion, how effective do you think it has been in terms of its ratification? You know, in terms of allowing freedom of press and in protecting the freedom of the press?
First of all, it's a very essential tool in information dissemination and sharing in the first place.
Yes.
So by ratifying the bill into an act, makes it possible for information to be accessed on time and without any hindrance. But we are seeing at the moment that it has not been properly utilized in the first place, because people don't really know how to go about this, especially not just the media now, because the Freedom of Information Act is for everybody.
Yeah, it's for everybody.
But the media might have used it in one way or the other, but the ordinary Nigerians on the street might not know how to use it at the moment. So as it stands now, it has not been properly utilized by the people on the streets.
Could this be due to ignorance of the awareness and the implication?
Of course, the awareness in the first place has not been, it's like people thought it was just for the media, but it's not necessarily for the media alone. Even though the media, they are the ones that should be working with it on a daily basis, but it's left for it's a tool that everybody can use, not just the media.
If you've been following the news closely, this is not the first time we hear of journalists being unlawfully detained. What is the implication on the younger generation taking over the media? Because what happens these days requires serious coverage. So what do you think would be the implication of the continuous silencing of dissent on media?
First of all, the media should report the truth. And when the stories like this break, and you are confident that what you are giving to the public is the truth, then you should go ahead and report it, no matter whose ox is God. And in this case, the presidency felt the story that was given across was not right in the first place. In fact, even though they have denied the fact that the order for the arrest of journalists came from the presidency, but the fact still remains that if you suppress the truth, then the role of the media they can't just be giving out information just for the sake of giving out information. They have to give out the truth to the public. And in this case, if you feel you've been wronged by any information passed by the media that is not correct, you have the right to go to court and sue them for whatever wrong information you felt that was not clearly sorted out.
Okay. Finally, what is your take on what role the media can play in consolidating our democracy and how it can be protected?
The media in democracy is very important. Is the everyday information sharing, and these days information is not just a one-way thing. It's a two-way affair. You give out. So in a democracy where there should be freedom of information and freedom of expression, of course, definitely the media has a very vital role to play in consolidating democracy. Very vital role,
Well, quite enlightening, I must confess. It's been wonderful having you in the studio. This is as much as we can take on the program today. What's your last comment, please?
My last comment generally is that we are no longer in a military era where journalists can be unlawfully detained without charge and stuff like that. So I think when the police feel they are going about their normal investigation, they should try as much as possible to avoid unlawfully detaining reporters, because they are giving out a very wrong signal to Nigerians in general, you understand? Because the role of the media is very important. Therefore, detaining the journalists at this stage in a democracy wouldn't all go well for all of us.
Hyelda, from you?
Well, like you said earlier, I believe ignorance actually is what makes someone accept crumbs when he can have the whole bread. And I feel there's much more we can do with the Freedom of Information Act, but it's up to the young people to actually get themselves acquainted and updated with what it means and what opportunities it holds for all of us.
This is how much we can take on this edition of Youth Weekly today. Would welcome your observations, would welcome your comments. Drop them on our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/YouthTVAfrica. What's your take on the issue of amnesty? Do you think it has the pulse? Should it be reviewed? How do you feel? The Chief Justice just stated that the public are losing confidence in the judicial system. Has the freedom of information been effective? Is it as effective as we anticipated? Would welcome your comments, would welcome your observation. This is how it's been on Youth Weekly. Till we see you same time next week. Take care.